You ready?
We have Kristen and Red.
And sleep fascinating.
They were gonna be online.
Do we, yeah, Anna, are they online yet?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. Let's give them a minute or two. Oh, Laura's got to go to a dress rehearsal, so we're trying to get the student presentation moving
Oh, got it.
quickly.
They're practicing their fight choreography right now.
Well, I mean,
so
it doesn't
Okay.
help us. But
You're okay. You're not in the fight.
No.
Do you have a live stream coming from the theater?
Yeah, we have a live stream.
No, I mean like right now to your computer. Can you see what they're doing?
No.
That would be amazing.
But there's an option to live stream the show if you can't go in person.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So what show is it?
12th Night
Oh,
by
awesome.
Shakespeare, but it's set in the 1980s on a college campus.
In case you couldn't tell from the earrings.
No.
Hi guys. How's it going?
Good area.
Good.
Well, let's get started because
Okay.
it's 6:32. It's called to order 6:32 meeting of the Montpelier-Roxbury Board of School Directors. First order of business, public comment. And I don't have the screen of people who might be watching in Libby or Anna, so if you could, maybe I could. So
I
if you,
can tell you if somebody's got their hand raised. Right now, you're good.
good, okay, and no one in the room either. So we're gonna do the consent agenda after the student presentation, just mix that up a little because Alara has scooted out of dress rehearsals and
double
is
duty.
due back at some point soon. So let's do
Sorry,
that.
Jim, we do have one hand raised for public comment.
Oh, okay. Why don't you just let that person go? If you could introduce yourself, that would be great.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Amanda Garcet, parent of 2 children. I am here just to, I read the report, the superintendent's report, and read about the literacy bill. I just want to encourage this school board to really stand and ensure that there will be, that we will not, as a district, be against this bill. Maybe there are concerns about the 40 hours. That is totally understandable, but there's a lot of great components in that bill that will impact all of our students in the state and in our school. As you know, there's a lot of concerned parents around the literacy and dyslexia in our district. There's a lot of things happening that we are concerned about in terms of how we are assessing our kids' needs and are assessing the literacy that they're receiving. And we have been really happy for the commitment that the district took for the 2-year training that the elementary school teachers are taking. And we still see a lot of inequities. There's a lot of parents that are paying out of pocket for tutoring outside of the district. There's a lot of parents that cannot afford that. And it still is a huge, huge component of inequities in this district. So I really hope that if you are going to testify against that bill, that there is a lot more information, that you listen to the VPR news cast that came out with Senator Gulick talking about the bill, plus other literacy educators in the state. And there's a lot of information out there, and I really encourage all of you to be informed and really be on the right side of history for this. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you, Amanda.
Is that it? Or do anyone else?
That's it.
Great, thank you. Alara and Miriam, take it away.
Okay. Hi. We just have a little student presentation about what's been happening the past few weeks at MHS to keep everyone updated and like talk about some really fun, positive stuff that's happening in this school. I look like this because I'm in the middle of dress rehearsal for our show, 12th Night, by William Shakespeare, set on a college campus in the 1980s. That's why I have like a lot of blush on. Yeah, so we can go to the next slide. It's a little, I try to make it fancy, but you know.
It looks very official.
I could just share what on my computer.
Laura, you look gorgeous, first of all. I love the makeup. Most people don't dress up for board meetings. I can't seem to advance the screen. Like, I can't seem to advance it when I'm
Yeah.
pulling it up. But keep going. I'll keep trying.
Okay, so we had a few events in the past week. We had our spring choral concert, March 19th, which was really fun. Miriam performed, she was really great. Then we had the day after this first ever event at our school called Soul and Soup for the Soul, where our cooking class made soup for the entire school. And as a whole school, we sat in the gym and we ate soup and we had a community meal. And it was so great because you just saw everyone mingling and talking to each other. And it was one of those events where you were like, wow, this is a really great school. Like, I don't know anywhere else that does this. Then on March 27th, there was a student organized walkout for in support of ending the occupation in Palestine, where students marched to the State House and they gave speeches in support of Palestine. Then this past Saturday, we had our annual Spring Fling. We hosted 4 other schools and we had over 500 students dancing and sweating and having fun and things like that. On Monday, spoken word poet Stephen Willis came to our school and he ran a few workshops with the English classes about how to construct like poems based on identity. And he made us fill out this like chart about like stuff about like race and gender and ethnicity. And then we wrote 5 metaphors on what it meant to exist as that identity in society. And he was like, 5 metaphors, you just wrote a poem. And that was really cool. And he shared some of his poetry from his book, which like chronicles his life story as a Black man growing up in Chicago. Our science department was doing some pretty cool stuff. Our physics class was doing an egg drop in the hallway. I don't think it was that messy because they're really good physics students, so nothing happened. Our biology class did a fingerprinting lab, which kind of mimics like the technology they use in like forensics labs when they take fingerprints of like evidence and how to like track DNA and things like that. And then in our AP biology class, which I'm in, we did a lab where we used plasmids to make bacteria glow in the dark, which was pretty cool. And yeah, tomorrow we open 12th night. We've been working on this show since January and we were sold out, but then we added more seats. So you can buy a ticket to be in person, or you can buy a link to the live stream if you can't make it in person. And it's really cool. And those are my student updates of what has happened at this school. Oh, wait, I promised. Okay, so I was in the class that made the soup. So I promised my teacher I would like talk about this. We had leftover soup. And so we packaged that up and we donated 40 quarts of soup to Another Way. So we were able to share our soup with our school community, but also our outside community. Yeah. And that's it.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
What time is the play?
The play is at 7. And then on Saturday, there's a 2:00 matinee.
And a 7 p.m., right?
And a
There's
7
two-
p.m.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's 2 shows.
It's my
I wish
last
we had
show.
a full house to hear all of that.
Yeah,
Again
that's
this week.
really great to hear that.
I mean, if you guys get done early, you might be able to peek your heads into the theater and see what we're working on. So
Sneak
yeah,
peek.
I'm gonna go and finish the show now. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks,
Yeah.
Miriam.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
Great, so let's skip back to the consent agenda for those who are tuning in, no one's in the room. The consent agenda is essentially items that are pretty routine in terms of just things you have to approve to keep business moving, like minutes from former meetings and co-curricular contracts. We actually are ratifying one of our union contracts, which is a big deal, but we usually do it by consent agenda. So it saves time and moves things along. And if anyone has a question about it, we just pull it out and discuss it. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I have a question. On the AFS CME contract, what employees does that cover?
That is, and let me make sure I get it right. It's basically everyone who's not an IA or teacher who's who's in a union.
Support staff.
Support staff.
So it's our admin assistants, our technology, our custodians. Those are the three main groups. The registrars.
Okay. And it's like, I took a quick look at the contract, and it was pretty long, like 40 something pages. Is there anything that you feel like we should know that's changed since the last contract?
No, we didn't. We had some language changes this time around. Nothing particularly significant, other than just very typical negotiations and language changes.
Okay.
It was a long negotiations process, but it resulted in
Not
few
much
major
change.
changes.
I have a follow-up to that. Can you give us the highlights of what the salary, I'm just guessing salary increases over the years are?
Yeah. Yeah, so keep in mind that this is a very small group of employees. This is around 15 to 20 employees. Like there's not many in this union. And so we settled on 5% each of the next 3 years.
Okay. Great.
Good.
Thanks.
And just in case anybody's wondering, 5% is what Christina had in our budget for next year for FY25. That is what she budgeted for FY25. So it's right in line with our budget. We don't have to change anything.
That's good.
Great.
Rhett has his hand up.
Brett?
Yeah, the MRE SSA contract, the working day starts at 7:30 and ends at, I believe, 3. Is there a time frame for this group of folks?
There are for custodians, there's specific shift times for custodians. These jobs do have very specific job descriptions in them. Most of them work from 8 to 4. Some work from 7 to 3. Some work from 7:30 to 3:30. It depends on the job. But the custodians are the only ones in the contract that have very specific hours because they're shifts.
Is there, let's just hypothetically, if the district were to sort of, totally hypothetically, were to add a position that helped with transportation, would this be the union group that it might fall into, or would it have to be outside of the 3 unions that we work with right now?
I wouldn't know. We'd have to design the job description.
Yeah.
It would not fit under this union, probably.
Okay, thanks.
Kristen has her hand up.
Kristen?
It's kind of hard to tell.
Hi, thanks. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I just had a question about the superintendent's report, Libby, in particular. The legislation that sounds like it's moving through, I think it was Senate to House in terms of the literacy education modules. And I was just curious, around, I guess, just details like the why, the what. I'm curious if kind of the modules that they're recommending, are these congruent with our current approach to literacy at MRPS? And
I don't know. Nobody's seen them.
Nobody's seen them. Okay. And has this been based on testimony from particular groups or individuals? And just wondering, in their process of kind of reviewing what they're considering, are they going to be seeking feedback from literacy specialists within the state, or a superintendent's group or principals group?
Lots of people have been testifying to the House around this. I'm not sure where the 40 hours came from. I really have no idea, because it's not based on any kind of research whatsoever. So I don't know where that number came from, and I didn't follow how they came up with that number. That's just what's in the bill. So, but now the House Ed will hear lots of testimony from lots of different people too, including the Superintendent's Association and teachers and the NEA and the Principals Association and the Stern Center. And, that's just how these bills work. So they'll hear plenty of testimony around this.
And so we don't know the nature of the modules or kind of the philosophy and whether or not it's sort of, syncs with what we're already doing, or if it's a departure from what we're doing. We don't really have any content.
I don't know what are in them. If people don't know, they haven't been shared with the field.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
So Kristen, there's a really good piece on Vermont Edition that I don't know if it answers all of your questions, and I didn't listen to the whole thing. So there's certainly a lot of information about what's being discussed out there. And yeah, I'm certainly a fan of VPR or Vermont Public. So you could listen to that podcast.
Okay. Thank you.
Is it a podcast or is it just a?
Now it was yesterday maybe aired, so now you can listen to it on podcast. But yeah, it was aired live, I think, during the Tuesday afternoon show.
Any further discussion about the consent agenda?
Might just be a new guy question, but what are co-curricular contracts? I didn't see a link to them, or
They're coaches.
Just
Coaches or advisors for clubs or something like that.
They were one of the attachments.
okay.
Yeah, they're not in the public board packet because they're confidential until we approve them or whatever in the consent agenda. So
Yeah.
you wouldn't find them online in the board packet, but they are attached to the email that board members get.
And I think they're even confidential actually.
Maybe even afterward, because it's a person and what they're getting paid, and they're not really an employee of the district.
Yeah.
New guy question.
Yeah. It's cool.
Yeah, and
Good
they're
to ask.
very small sums of money.
Yeah.
For a lot of work.
The amount of hours they work.
For a lot of work.
Yeah.
They rival,
Yeah.
you might say, the stipend of a school board member. I have one other question, Libby. You referenced the blog that the administrators are putting out. How would people sign up for that if they wanted to get alerts for that blog?
You wouldn't get alerts for that. That's an internal document that's sent out. And so we're putting a PDF in the board packet.
Was there one in this? Are you going to start doing that? I didn't see one.
It should have gone in the board packet. Oh, that was supposed to go in the board packet. I apologize.
Okay.
We'll make sure that Anna gets we got one went out today, so we'll make sure that it went, that the board superintendent report probably didn't make much sense without it then. I'm sorry about that.
I remembered that you had other kinds of communications of that nature, and I thought I was signed up for them at one point, and that's why I was a little confused. So now this makes a little more sense.
No, the board, I'm sorry about that. The PDFs should have gone into the board packet.
I did see it today. I read through most of it today. I don't know when exactly it appeared, but it is available now. The PDF.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Were those things that Anna attached in a follow-up?
Could be.
Yeah, okay.
Right, they'll now go in the board packet just as but they'll be a PDF. They won't be, because they have live links, but the links are for teachers to fill things out and things like that. So that's not appropriate. What I wanted to show, I think it's good communication and good information from our central office administrators. And it's just good, I think, for the public and for the board to see the information that's going out and the messaging that's going out.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, thanks. I'll look again.
Any more discussion on the consent agenda? I'm glad we did Alara's presentation first.
Yeah, right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda passes. So now we're going to do committee assignments, I believe. So what we thought we'd do with these is have the current chairs, to the extent that they're with us. I think everyone except Emma and Scott or I can just do an overview of the committee. And then, these are open for complete reassignment. If you want a different committee, you can have a different committee. If, I think the only person who's not on a committee is Tim, but, definitely shift around if you're, if you are looking for a new challenge, or looking to get into a different committee, definitely let us know. I mean, I do want to say that, this is probably true. Like, a lot of these committees have a lot of ongoing work. So it would be nice to have some continuity on the committee, so it's not a complete reset. But committee seats are completely open for reshuffle. A important committee is going to be negotiations, because we have two contracts, and in not the most flush of financial times. So those could take some time to be on the committee, but they're also super important. And I think keeping 4 people on the negotiations committee is good, because then we can split 2 and 2. But yeah, that is one of the most important committees, and also one of the most time-consuming committees, and sometimes not the most fun. So I don't know who wants to start. Who's the current chair of the finance committee? Is it Brett? You want to give an overview?
Finance committee is probably one of the less demanding committees. There's a quarterly report. We review the quarterly report, summarize that committee meeting on a quarterly basis for the school board. There's a little bit more of a dive into the budget and how things are going. Opportunity for questions and learning. If you're new to the board, it's a great opportunity for kind of getting an understanding of kind of how things work and the way the budget functions. That's the story with the finance committee.
Any questions?
Unless somebody else, is that accurate? Unless anyone else, that's pretty much it.
Any questions about the finance committee? Brett? Unless you want to do it, Scott, I can do policy.
It's all you.
Okay. So the policy committee, not surprisingly, helps with our policies. Essentially, we make sure our policies are current. There are policies always changing based on law and kind of recommended practice. The VSBA usually does a good job of letting us know when policies need to be changed, and then oftentimes will give us a model policy to work from, and we oftentimes change it, just to make sure it reflects what works for our district in terms of values and goals. Sometimes we have to either work with Pietro, the district's lawyer, or at least be cognizant of legal changes, because we are not at liberty with some policies to do whatever we want, because sometimes they're mandated by law, and they essentially have to ensure that we are compliant with the law. And they range from, for one, they're what guides our decision making, because we are a kind of policy focused board. But they range from everything to, from our policies about alcohol and substance use in buildings, to firearms, to how we conduct ourselves as a board. So they're pretty extensive. I would say it's a medium to high workload committee. We've got kind of several policies right now that we're noodling on. We've got a few that I think we need to get moving. It's not a bad thing to have a bit of a legal background, because sometimes that can help you know when you're what the guardrails are and what you can do.
When they use that little S squiggly thing.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a policy committee. Anything to add, Scott?
I think you nailed it.
Questions about the policy committee? Equity, Kristen, you're the chair, right?
I believe that's Mia.
Yeah, okay. Your facilities, right?
She's facilities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we're working on interdependent leadership on the equity committee. So we all work together as a team. I'm going to read from our draft charge to give us the basis of what the equity committee is about. We function to actualize commitments of the board in our diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. That's policy F22. Namely, take concrete action to provide a barrier-free, safe, and supportive learning environment for all our students. The Equity Committee supports the board to identify and dismantle systemic obstacles that place limits on academic achievement and access to opportunities by MRPS learners based on race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, religious affiliation, mental and physical ability, financial resources, and family structure. So that is what we've drafted as far as a charge goes. And to be perfectly honest, I think the Equity Committee, as we have gotten underway, has tried in different ways to figure out how to actualize that. And I think there are things that we've done that are very helpful. And I think we're still sort of finding our way about what it means to lead the board or support the board in meeting the goals of policy of our DEI policy. Just a couple of examples of what we've done. We created an equity tool that mostly the policy committee uses to kind of run the decisions around policy through an equity lens. We also, for the last 3 years, I think, have conducted the climate survey of how what it's like to be working in our schools. And we supported we worked on behalf of the board to find and hire the consultant who is doing the equity audit. So those are a few things that we've done to, like I said, try and find our way through that in executing on this charge. One new idea that we have that is certainly related to this in how accessibility and communication relate to equity is that we've been talking for a while about having a committee of the board that works on communication. And as you can see from the list in the board packet, we already have many committees. So one idea of the equity committee is that we could take on some of the initial work to figure out what communication and engagement with our communities look like, and then set in place some structures that all committees could follow or the board follows, because we don't really have much in place right now. So that's an idea. If you're interested in that, the equity committee might be the place for you. Oh, and one other thing, we will be getting the report about the equity audit quite likely at the next board meeting. They're still putting the finishing touches on it, as well as the presentation. And after that, I'm sure there will be other things that the equity committee will want to be focused on. It'll just be a matter of how to best use our time.
I love the
Question?
idea of the communications. Thank you for thinking of that.
Sure.
Yeah, I think I was going to bring up whether we should form a communications committee.
That report. That report you're talking about?
We don't have it yet.
We
Okay.
have the draft,
Yeah.
but there's
It's-
finagling going on with
Yeah.
cleaning it up and stuff.
It
Like,
will-
what's the idea behind, like, what's the headline of it?
We-
I mean, not result, but what's the?
We hired the firm to do an audit of the whole district in terms of how are we doing essentially at providing an equitable education to all of our students. And so the report will highlight how we are doing at that.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So the next one is you, Kristen, facilities and energy.
Thanks, Jim. So Facilities and Energy Committee is about 3 years young, and kind of it started at a time when there was this confluence of various different facilities, issues coming up or deliberations coming up, in combination with, we were hearing a lot from the community in Montpelier in particular about net zero goals. The city is, established and been aiming for, and a desire to see some kind of match and congruency supporting those goals. So, so about 3 years ago, I think when I initially, or the Facilities and Energy Committee was born, and since then, and really kind of our initial effort was to really get into our buildings as a committee and to understand them. MHS track or the UES cafeteria or the town hall at RVS, that we had a good sense of what our facilities are made of. So it's really kind of having a familiarity with our facilities and our building inventory, such that when they're coming up as issues of conversation, that we can kind of understand them and represent them, and speak to them, to the board, to give you all a better sense of what that looks like. And I would say in the last couple of years, the big push has been around net zero, and this committee came up with a resolution that the board signed off on, in establishing a net zero goal to match that of the city of Montpelier. And we started to make the steps of creating an ad hoc committee that would help to advise the board and kind of prioritizing and figuring out how do we actually net zero. A lot of that hold because we've been on such kind of micro focus with budget things over the last 6 months. But that has been a big focus of our attention. We work really closely with Andrew LaRosa, our facilities director for the district, and he's just consistently giving us updates on kind of projects and needs and things coming up. Andrew produces a really intensive and comprehensive annual facilities report. So we're kind of the first group that received that and feedback on that.
You're cutting in and out a little.
I don't know if it's your mic or something, because it doesn't seem like it's your connection. Your volume keeps going and then back to normal.
Interesting. It's always something. Well, I don't know what to say about that.
Okay.
Because I'm on my computer, so I guess I'll keep trying. Maybe give me like a thumbs up or thumbs down if it's.
But now you're good.
Okay. So we work really closely with Andrew LaRosa, our facilities director, and kind of reviewing that report and getting a better understanding of it and getting into the details. We tend to meet monthly, and that's about it. Anybody else out in the crowd? Oh, and then of course we also have the facility strategic planning process that is underway, that was initiated in December, and we are waiting to hear a kind of draft report from the vendor that's been conducting that for the district. So turns out we actually have a lot going on. So if that's appealing and you're interested, that's what we're up to.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristen. Yeah, no, and now, as you mentioned, with that study coming out and facilities is interesting, and the net zero stuff is going to be really interesting too. So that is an exciting committee to be on. Superintendent evaluation, do you want to talk about it, Mia?
Sure. We conduct the annual evaluation of the superintendent, including the midpoint evaluation, and we basically hold the process and then get it in front of the board and work with Libby on it, and work with to get input from members of Libby's team. We get input from members of the board, and we also try and bring in some of the top level takeaways from the climate survey to put it all together, and that happens once a year. And outside of that time, we don't, the superintendent committee doesn't really meet too much, unless there are things we want to do to update the process that we go through. And then I will say, putting my equity committee chair hat on for 1 second, the equity committee was hoping to hand off the climate survey to the evaluation committee, given that it's a little bit more in their, the container of evaluation overall. And because if the equity committee is going to be taking on the work of communication, trying to get communication and engagement a little bit more structured and going, then that will be a lot of our focus. And we don't think we would have the time for the climate survey. And we do need to conduct the climate survey, not only because it's really good information for us to have and for the community to have about what is it like to be working within our schools, but also because it is a contractual obligation that we have with our teachers. So that is quite likely going to be some of the work of the superintendent evaluation committee as well, which we might rebrand as just the evaluation committee, because Rhett has for a couple of years now had the idea that we should also be doing a board assessment, like looking at our own, how we work together and giving ourselves our own evaluation. So we may just become an evaluation committee. We'll see. You can be a part of that if you want to be on the committee.
I also want to add that with a lot of work from Mia, we restructured the tool that we use to evaluate the superintendent. And that was a lot of work. Hats off to Mia. And it's a much better and more effective tool. So I just want to throw that out there.
Thanks, Rhett. Which means we also don't have to do that again this year.
No. Yeah, no, and it's one of, I mean, evaluating the superintendent, I know we might turn into evaluation committee, but evaluating the superintendent is probably one of the, like really kind of our three main tasks are passing a budget.
Top three, yeah.
Evaluating the superintendent and
policy.
And both policy and also liaison to the community. And there was a period in time when we did not have a superintendent evaluation committee, and I want to stress the importance of having a superintendent evaluation committee. It's not the most work intensive committee, but I think it's one of the most important ones. Because hiring and keeping a good superintendent is really probably the most effective thing a board can do for the district. So the Future of Roxbury Village School Committee is starting to get up and going. I don't know, Kristen or Lynn, if you want to talk about that. And also, do we have people that we need to nominate and appoint to that committee as part of this? Because I know that that's open and we've gotten some expressions of interest. So.
Well, we met Monday night for the first time. I think it was Monday, sometime this week. It's all kind of blending together. Anyway, we selected people from each town, teachers and parents and students, to be on the committee. Awesome. And we have given ourselves the charge, I think, of focusing on initially the transition of kids to the schools here and or the elementary school here. And then once that's kind of figured out and things are in place, we'll move on to how do we want to support the community in using that building, because that gives us the rest of the year to do that. And I think do you know, Kristen, did you get all the results of the survey figured out? We're going to meet weekly, I think, for the next month because there's so much to do. And then we'll move every other week or something. So we were figuring out when everybody could meet. I don't know when the meeting is.
Yeah, I think I've heard from most folks, but not everybody yet, but we're trying to land our standing committee meeting day and time. But in the meeting on Monday, yeah, there was kind of universal feeling that this is going to require some real front loading, and that we would meet weekly over the kind of in the first month, and then from there try to attempt to a more bi-weekly meeting schedule. So yeah, but that is to be determined, hopefully in the next I don't know, 12 hours in terms of but it is, you know, it is great that we've gotten interest, and we've been able to respond to that interest, and we've been able to let folks know that they are officially invited to join us on this committee, and the intent to get the work going in earnest quickly.
Yeah, no, excellent. And thank you everyone for stepping up and being on that committee. And do we have a running list of the people who we want to appoint?
Great question. I do have a list. I would love to get feedback on what the process for appointment is. They have been informed that they're on the committee. So if there was something that needed to happen in front of the board at large, that is great to know.
I mean, I think we have to formally nominate and appoint them, so that way it's a standing body. And it's also one of those things where, like, obviously people, you know, we can add people as they go along, and you know, I think the only thing it matters for are things like quorum and any action, but otherwise it's obviously an open meeting, and you know, if we want to add people drop off, we can do that on a rolling basis.
Okay, so does there need to be a formal process? Should we attempt tonight, or?
I mean, we everyone that you've told is on the committee, we should nominate and appoint. And then, you know, if we need to add folks, we can do that later, but it's pretty easy. We can just and we'll probably just do this all as one motion once we get everyone's preferences set. We can just put those names in, and you can either tell me, or you can just send me an email, and I'll read it off when we get to the nomination.
Okay, great. Yeah, and then on that is it's myself and Lynn and Rhett and Scott, and Lynn and myself have volunteered to be co-chairs of that committee.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, excellent. Then we'll just get the rest of the list. So the rest of the positions have all been already appointed. We did those on, what was it, the 6th that we met. Tim, you're the one that's new to it. Do you need a refresher on those positions, or do you feel like you've?
Which positions?
The one we've already appointed. We've appointed. You know, Scott stepped up to replace Jill for the.
Yeah.
Okay, you got that. Okay, cool. So I don't know how best to do this, Scott.
I don't either. I just want to. I need to come off of something. I've already had 4 board meetings this week. And so I'd like to come off policy maybe. Sorry, Jim. And
that's what I want to come off of too.
That's fine. So we got a clean slate.
Which doesn't do well. I think that committee in particular needs continuity, or maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But if we both leave and then Emma's already gone, that leaves.
I think somebody should be on it who's been on it for a bit. Just to.
Yeah, I may stay.
Could I offer a suggestion? The just for a bit that Lynn said gave me an idea that you could just do it for like 2 or 3 months to do a smooth handoff, and then we could formally allow you to step down from the committee,
like,
instead of having it be like you're looking at the next year.
Oh yeah, no,
being a member of all the committees that you're currently on.
And we just for everyone, we do shift committees in midstream if people are feeling overloaded or whatever.
We've done it.
Yeah. So you are not locked in stone.
Has anyone been on policy besides the 2 of us on this current board?
I have.
Yeah, Red has.
I'm interested in the policy committee.
You'd be interested in going back?
Yeah. I mean, I can't be on every committee.
No, you can't.
You can try, Rhett.
I don't
I
recommend it
don't
though.
want to do that.
Well, and I think Tim is you're interested in finance, right?
Yeah.
Would you want to step off of finance?
Sure.
Okay.
What is the negotiation season? Is it August, September?
Yeah,
I
when
know
do
the
we
teachers are
start?
the teachers are gonna want to start early. They already talked to me about that. So I would imagine that the teachers get started really in September, maybe October. The IAs typically take a little bit longer to, I wouldn't expect that. Like I usually have to push them to get started, so I'd expect them around November-ish, hopefully.
And we oftentimes have Pietro help us with teacher negotiations.
Yeah, teachers is actually less stressful or less work, I'd say, than the IAs. Pietro really leads the teachers. It's a different kind of work, I guess, than the IAs. The IAs aren't overly burdensome. It's a different kind of work.
You just don't have.
More talking and conversation with the IAs than Pietro leading the way.
Yeah, you don't have the help of a highly skilled, highly paid professional.
Right.
Which can be useful.
Do we have a Word doc version of the committee assignments or just the PDF?
I just have a PDF which I printed out, and I'm
Chicken scratching.
chicken scratching it.
And I bet you Anna's on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Anna does a great job of translating our chicken scratch into usable documents.
Well, if it helps, I'm on 3 committees and I like the ones I'm on and I'd like to stay there.
Okay.
Boom, done.
Done.
Unless you.
And she's like,
really
and I'm
want
not
me
moving.
Somewhere
Don't
else.
put me on another committee.
Yeah.
That's what I just heard.
So
from Lynn.
Scott would like to drop off of policy. Is there any other committees that you're?
That's my preference.
Okay.
And I think if I did that, I would be at a equilibrium.
Yeah,
And-
after the first year on the Career Center, especially because I was the chair, but even so, there's subcommittees on that board as well for finance and facilities. So I was sort of given the pass of, not that being on negotiations is a pass, but having only one other committee. So I'm happy to take your spot on policy if that helps.
Oh,
Oh.
there you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay, so I think.
I don't think it's an even trade, but I still.
Other than finance, Tim, what's grabbing your eye?
I figure I'm the new guy, so I'm also happy to take the last things hanging like, as a new guy. But I mean, the things that and policy is interesting. That sort of evaluation committee sounds interesting as you were describing it. So those are things I'd be happy to do. I guess what's the norm here? 2 or 3 or what? I'd be happy to do 3 because it seems like a couple of those are low lift.
I could give you my spot on the evaluation committee. And then I would stay with policy, RVS, and and then
Negotiations.
Yeah, that's a full load for you, Rhett.
yeah. So you could take my spot on the evaluation committee, just to lessen things for me a tiny bit. If that works for anyone.
Yeah, finance is just quarterly meetings.
Yeah.
So if he's on that and the others, it's.
Do you want to put you on policy too, and I can stay there for continuity, and if I can swing it time wise, I'll stay, and otherwise, if you're getting up to speed, that's maybe something I could step off.
Second.
I said, put you on policy. I can stay on policy for continuity. Rhett's going to bring a little continuity too.
Yeah.
And then we can either keep it a 4-person committee, or if I'm feeling overloaded, I can step off. And you're a lawyer too, so you can play that role. if need be.
I'll be the person in charge of this squiggly thing.
Yeah, there you go.
And
Know
are,
exactly when to use it.
and are all the folks who currently are on the negotiation, is the committee happy with being on the negotiations committee? And is there anyone who's just dying to be on the negotiations committee?
That's one I actually would prefer not to be on just because of work
Mm.
that I do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No.
I can stay on.
Okay.
That was part of it.
Yeah. So we can keep that as is. Is everyone who's on the finance committee with the except we switch Tim out for Rhett? Is anyone wanting to move on to the finance committee or wanting to move off of the finance committee?
I'm happy where I am.
I love finance committee.
You love finance committee?
I'm on the finance committee for the career center too, so it's like efficiencies of scale.
So let's say we have policy committee all set unless there's someone else who's interested in the policy committee.
And just to recap, that's Jim, Rhett, Jill, and Tim
Tim.
on policy right now.
Jim is emeritus.
Yeah.
The equity committee, is there anyone who wants to step on or off of the equity committee? Right now it's Kristen, Mia, and Lynn. And we can have 4 people, we can have 5 people on the committee.
Yeah, it's not,
Yeah.
we have to swap out.
Yeah.
Right, I thought when I started, there was a discussion around the optimum is 3, so that if 2 people are there.
You still
there's
have a quorum.
There's
Yeah.
still a quorum.
Yeah.
Right, and so with 4, if 2 people are there, it's not a quorum because it's not more than 50%.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Although I think that's just I think you can still meet and do business.
Just you can't take action.
You can't take formal
Yeah.
action.
Yeah.
So it's not, and
Yeah.
there's not a lot of formal action that's taken in the committee. Most is taken to the board. So it's not a trend. And I also think we try to 3 to 4 is the sweet spot
Yeah.
because if we tried to, I think we're all cognizant that there's only so many committees we can be on and only so many bodies.
Yeah.
Anyone who wants to move on or off the equity committee?
It doesn't feel good to me that there are 3 women on the equity committee. And I also was told that I need to learn how to say no. And so I'm like, can't tell you who told me I need to say no, but
Someone?
you might be able to
I mean,
guess.
it's good advice, no matter who gave it to you,
Yeah,
it's good
so-
advice.
Someone near and dear to you?
Yeah. So I'm contemplating it.
Well, you can always join later.
I was just gonna say, you could assess
Mm.
how this new balance is working for
Yeah.
you, Scott, and if you're feeling like you've got a little more to give, just,
Yeah.
we can appoint you to it.
And the meetings are open to the public, so
Yes.
you could visit, check it out.
So right now we're set with that. Scott may, if time allows, want to move out of the committee at some point this year. Facilities and energy, right now it's Kristen, Lynn, and Jake. Anyone who is either interested in stepping on that committee or stepping off of the committee?
I think I would be interested in joining that committee.
Awesome.
but It's contingent on when it meets, so.
We have a meeting at lunch times on weekdays, but we could move it to a time that's better for you, probably.
Yeah, I feel like we've largely been meeting on either kind of early Friday mornings or kind of lunch hour on Fridays.
Love early Friday mornings.
Yeah, I didn't hear, who was that wanting to hop on? Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah, we could try to figure out, Miriam, kind of a time that would work for you.
Awesome.
Yeah. Cool.
One quick question. Is the practice typically remote for committee meetings or are they typically in person?
Usually remote.
The finance committee is often in person because it's like 5:30
Oh.
immediately preceding a board meeting.
Got it. Yeah.
But
And they're often, doesn't Christina
Yeah.
usually kind of report
Yeah.
out? Yeah.
but that's the only one that I think I've
And negotiations is generally in person.
They're often before board meetings too.
Yeah. Or just at random
Sometimes.
times that oftentimes never end.
You're getting jaded.
Getting.
I had a 9-hour.
We're picking on you
a
too.
9-hour negotiations meeting once. It was
Ouch.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
I brought snacks.
So it seems like the current lineup of the Facilities and Energy Committee is good with the addition of Miriam. Great. The Net Zero Ad Hoc Committee is on there. Is that something we need to appoint folks to, Kristen?
I believe we do.
Wait. Okay.
Yeah, I think I maybe need to have a conversation with you, Jim, Libby, about just like 101 appointing community members to
I've already appointed members.
we have members.
Okay.
Not really be not a formal process. However, that process is also been very much put on pause. I just like having committee parties, so I don't really I don't acknowledge formalities. So yeah, but anyhow, but that group has also not really formally assembled because at the time that we were finally getting momentum, budget meteors hit. So yes, but we have interested parties and we really need like a regrouping now that we're starting to move forward.
Yeah. So it sounds like it may be in flux a little. Do you want to kind of get the group that?
I think reconvening the Facilities and Energy Committee would be kind of first step, and then as a group, kind of figuring it out from there. There's just been a lot of different things that have occurred since this group started. So I think we need to start with a committee meeting and then go from there.
Okay.
Kristen, I also think that's a good conversation and question to have with the people who are doing our facilities audit.
Yes.
There's mention of net zero in the audit that you'll see, so they will be excellent resources for the Facilities and Energy Committee.
Great. Yeah, and I think that's kind of what we were trying to figure out is just like the timing of that piece and when to get this ad hoc committee, if there was kind of things that we would be waiting on for them. So there was just a lot of different threads that felt like we needed to pull together. So
yeah, wait for the audit on that because they do talk about that.
Okay, and yeah, and I'll
It's
get
coming in May.
Okay,
Yep.
May.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay.
Do we have the board members appointed to that?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Sounds like Kristen.
Heading that up, I think initially.
The board members are, well, no, like with the Roxbury transition, future of Roxbury Village School Committee, like we decided on the 4 board members and then like got the community. And so I didn't know if we had.
Right, we haven't done that step for the net zero.
And I should know the answer because I was on the board when it.
Yeah, I'll claim like a little bit of amnesia around. I just like some revisiting is necessary on the composition of that. So I'll check in and circle back with folks.
Can the Facilities and Energy Committee just kind of fold the net zero in temporarily?
Yeah, I mean that's where it lives. You mean the ad hoc committee, Lynn?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the ad hoc committee kind of lives within the Facilities and Energy Committee. That was a kind of first initiative of the resolution that the board passed, was to create this ad hoc committee to kind of support the implementation of the resolution and get feedback from a group of just informed and experienced stakeholders in that realm. So that's where it currently lives.
So it's really an ad hoc subcommittee
Mhm.
of the facilities and energy.
Yes.
That feels accurate.
Got my nomenclature right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think in terms of appointing, that probably could be a consent agenda item. You could just, once you get the list, you could just send it to Anna and she could put it in the packet and
For the net zero.
yeah.
For both, right?
Yeah, for both.
The important thing is that it's in the public record.
Exactly. The important thing is that it happens. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's not a committee. It's just a group of
Just a
people.
party.
Yeah,
It's just a party.
it's just a party.
With no
Just people,
formalities.
I don't know. I think I'd also just like to say, just taking this all in, I don't know how, I feel that the RVS transition committee work is going to be a big lift, and the facilities committee alongside with this ad hoc committee, I feel like that sort of puts me on 3 committees, and I may want to consider stepping down from the equity committee, as much as I really don't want to. But I think just realistically, I don't think I can hold all 4 of those pieces. So if there was somebody who is really hankering for a space on the equity committee, oh, double thumbs down from Nia. Okay.
I support that. I support you setting boundaries and saying no when you need to, Kristen. But I also
see Jim is looking at me right now.
but I also will miss you.
Yes, thank you. And it seems like maybe Scott, if this could be a segue for you.
Oh boy.
Oh, but you also, anyways.
He's working on saying no as well.
The camera's on me right now, which is good.
Well, why don't you've got a lot of play? Why don't we move you from the equity committee and just leave it at 2 for now, with the idea that Scott is going to go wrestle with
Just put me on the equity committee.
Okay.
And we'll
Okay.
call it.
Wow.
It's possible in June I could join another committee. But not right now.
Can we ask you to join other committees so you can say no to that, so we can like at least say you said no?
Let's see, what else is he? Oh, finance.
He's on policy finance and.
No, you just took him off policy. You're not on policy, right?
That's right. Not
Not you didn't take him off.
He's on finance, RVS.
Oh, and that. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, and he's the rep to the Center for Vermont.
Right. And is on the finance.
Yeah.
Okay. No, we don't need to.
Yeah.
We don't need to repeat your CV to you. Sorry.
Yeah. You get low marks on saying no.
This isn't being recorded, is it?
Of course it is.
Oh boy. Okay.
It might even be being watched.
Yeah.
Oh. All right.
What else we got?
So do you have names you want to list for the RVS Transition Committee?
I'm sorry, one more time.
Do you have names that you want to list for the RVS Transition Committee so we can just put those in and approve them as part of the slate?
Yep, I would just need to scroll to another screen and document. Give me a moment.
Okay. And just while you do that, everyone is okay with the idea of the equity committee kind of doing an exploration of communications and coming up with some next steps on that? Maybe even just an equity and communications committee at some point?
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, the initial thinking is that we'd have ideas to bring before the board, and then the board would figure out what to do with them and how to use them. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right.
I'm good with that. That's been my deal for a long time, so.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready. So you want me to read these off, and then I could like copy paste these names into an email if that's easiest?
Yeah, perfect. And send them to Anna and me and Livy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so our RVS, Roxbury Village School Transition Committee, Folks that we would like to nominate are Amber Wadley, Biba Khan, Diego Soria, Hannah Bryant, Hannah Zajac, Jackson Renfrew Garrard, hopefully I have that right, Katie Swick, Katie Stevens Favorite, Peyton Donahue, Rachel Popoli, and Victor Warango.
I hear
Awesome.
some student
Great.
names in there. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good
We have-
list.
We have 3 students, 2 from Roxbury and 1 from Montpelier.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I think we have a nice mix of skills and people and perspectives and stuff. I think it'll be good.
So can I have a motion to nominate the fall? Well, before I do that, any last minute changes, switcheroos, regrets?
Changes of heart. Try not to all look at Scott.
So can I just clarify on finance policy and evaluation?
Yes.
Okay.
So I scratched down most of the names and I'm going to repeat it. So I'm going to go from bottom to top. So on the future of Roxbury Village School, the transition committee, we have Scott Rett, Kristen and Lynn from the board, plus all of the people that Kristen just named that she's going to put an email to send to Anna and I. For superintendent evaluation, me, Tim, Mia. The Net Zero Ad Hoc Committee will be formed or at least put in an email and sent to us at a later date. Facilities and Energy will be Kristen, Lynn, Jake, Miriam. Equity, Scott, Mia, Lynn. Policy, Jim, Rhett, Jill, Tim. Finance, Tim, Scott, Jake. Negotiations, Jill, Rhett, Jim, Lynn. Does that all sound right? Do I have a nomination? Do I have a motion to appoint that slate to what I just said they're on?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thanks. And Anna, how much of that did you get and how much you need sent to you?
I got it all updated on the Google Doc already. We're good.
Dang.
Oh, wow.
Dang.
That is awesome.
I just wanted to highlight one thing that I think, Lynn, you mentioned, but I just want to make sure not only board members, but also members of the public who are watching, these committees meetings are open meetings, just like board meetings are. And these are places where members of the community can serve as a member of a committee without having to be a board member. So if anyone who's listening is interested and says, hey, I'd really like to be part of that equity committee, but is thinking maybe they're not allowed to because they're not a board member, that's not true. We can have citizen members of our committees. Is that?
I think for some, but not all.
Right, not like in negotiations, we
Yeah.
probably can't.
We cannot, no.
And so if anyone's interested in any of them, please email schoolboard@mpsvt.org to know whether or not it's one that you could serve on, or if you want to get the like ongoing meeting schedule so that you can participate in it if you want.
That's a quick question. Do we, like, probably a new guy question again, but do we have chairs of each? Like, will someone call a meeting that we will, okay, all right.
And when the committees meet, they can nominate their own chair.
All right, I just want to make sure that he's gonna do something.
Yes. And we can set those processes in motion. Does anybody have revote board messaging, which I have to be 100% honest that I'm not totally sure what that is.
I can help you out there. This is for the board to discuss, like, what is there anything we want to do leading up to April 30th to encourage getting out the vote and help inform voters about the new version of the budget.
Okay. That revote.
That revote.
Yeah.
Not revote.
We are not.
I know, like, did we vote on our board messaging? Like, okay.
Can I start off hot out of the gate on this one?
You can start out however you want.
I was hoping, so your flurry of front porch forum posts right before the original vote was great.
Oh, thank you.
And I was really hoping that, I think probably the front porch forum activity is going to pick up again, you know, with all kinds of craziness. Is there some way that we can nip misconceptions in the bud right as they happen? Like, oh, they want to do a track and it's blah, 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 blah. You know, it's like, well, here's what we're doing on the track. You know, it's $400,000 out of originally 1.9 for safety. Well, you know, is that possible?
I think it definitely is. I mean, here's kind of my thought on the budget. I think we did hard work and made hard choices, and I think we've got a budget that's going to pass. My concern is that people are just going to forget to vote.
Your concern is what?
People are going to forget to vote.
Forget to vote.
And I think like we can definitely do that messaging. I think getting frequent reminders out to the public that, you know, walk to City Hall, vote. It's on the third. It's you know, it's a weird day. People have already had town meeting day. They're not thinking about voting. It's kind of not on the calendar. It's, you know, for state workers, it's not a holiday. It's kind of a random Tuesday in the middle of spring.
The first Tuesday coming back after spring break,
Yeah.
where maybe folks have been traveling.
John Odom did some stuff on Front Porch Forum about the vote, and I don't know if he would be willing to do something else, but we could also remind people that they can get absentee ballots
You can walk down now.
and drop them.
You can vote tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes.
They are ready to accept your vote.
Yeah.
So I think we should, you know, that might help a lot with getting more votes in and reminding people. And I think are you still doing stuff in the bridge?
I'm planning to do another Times Argus article, and I think you're planning to do something in the bridge, right?
I could, yeah. I think those are a component. I wouldn't say they're the only thing, only thing we should do. Yeah.
But I think like having just us ping folks and also using, kind of having it be a constant thing in the like principals, communications to caregivers that you please vote. We can't tell people how to vote. We can please vote. And you can either vote on April 30th, you can request an absentee ballot to be sent to your house, or you can just
Go get one.
go get one and take, it's
Go vote.
it's a 5-second vote.
It's just because it's just the one
It's
question.
one question.
So I've been seeing, I think there's like flyers posted on every school front door, and the weekly messages coming out from principals. There's a similar or the same flyer. I think before I retired from UVM Extension, one of the tactics we were really focusing on was not reinventing the wheel, right? You take the same content and you repurpose it for, every possible medium. And so if you're already planning a Times Argus article, what can we just take that and with some reformatting, make it a Front Porch Forum post, make it a bridge article, make it a whatever. And rather than, 7 of us all creating something from scratch.
No, I think we should definitely do that. And a link to the Times Argus article can be a Front Porch Forum post. I just think like reminding people to get out and vote
Sooner
rather than later.
No need to wait.
Yeah, no need to wait. Yeah, and especially with spring break, because people are going to be focused on going on spring break, and then they're going to come back, and then they're going to
Do we have to have a budget information meeting prior to the vote, just like on town meeting day?
I thought that was in the timeline.
I think we do. Yeah.
There is an informational meeting. It's not a board meeting. It's not a board meeting, but there is an informational meeting that we have to have, and we'll have
It has to be certain number of days prior to the vote.
Yeah, well, Christine and I are already planning on doing it the day before the vote.
Yeah.
They're pretty awesome flyers. I'm not to sign me and Alara up for more work, but I was thinking that if we could try and send those flyers home with high school students, that could be a way to get them to the parents. So we could potentially park ourselves at the doors before break and try and get them to people.
Can we ask teachers to put them in folders for, like, I know my kids bring stuff home from elementary school, and in theory, they're supposed to bring them home from middle school.
Usually an end of the week packet or something, isn't there?
It varies depending upon the teacher and the age, I suspect, but there is a mechanism for getting stuff home, and I think it varies.
That's a question for Libby and Brett. I see your hand. I'll get you in a second.
Yeah, we can totally send something home. Scott, you're right in that it varies in age as to what actually gets home. But
Ours are usually crumpled up underneath like last week's lunch.
right, exactly, at the bottom of the backpack that you clean
Yeah.
out maybe once a week.
Yeah, I found orange juice and yeah, exactly.
Brett?
I think it's worth mentioning that it's likely folks in Roxbury will be quite motivated to vote. So for what it's worth, if Montpelier supports this budget, people should show up.
Rhett, do you know if Tammy, the town clerk, has ballots already? We just know that John Odom has ballots already, and I don't know if they use the same printer or anything. Kristen or Rhett, do you know?
I don't know.
So we don't know if folks in Roxbury we should just make sure we're clear. Like, we don't want Roxbury folks to go to the town hall tomorrow and be like, I'm ready to vote, and have Tammy go, sorry, I'm not ready for you. So
Yeah,
we
we
don't.
haven't heard from Tammy. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I don't know if she usually tells us when the ballots are in. I don't think that's usually a conversation we have, but it's not usually one with John either. I think John is just because it's his revote.
Right.
I do think that John and Tammy have been in touch quite a bit, so he may be aware better than we are.
Yeah, that's what John said when he came here. He said that they were in communication, and Tammy was just like, do whatever. Roxbury sounded like a lot easier than Montpelier, and could do whatever worked.
It's just a matter of whether or not he literally only has the ballots now because the printer was faster than he expected them to be. So we don't know if she's using the same printer or whatever. So we don't want to be putting out false get out the vote information.
Absolutely.
That would be bad.
Kristen.
I recall there being a conversation that if you had requested an absentee ballot in the first vote, that you would automatically be sent an absentee ballot in this vote. Is that true?
No, John, they changed that rule in some way.
Yeah.
They did, yeah.
He retracted that.
Okay. So
So
that
you
is
need to request one again.
Yes.
If you would prefer to do an absentee ballot, you do need to request one again from your town clerk.
An absentee ballot at home, but you can vote early and basically get an absentee ballot like at the desk.
And John had included that in his Front Porch Forum post, and there was, I think he checked with the Department of State or agents, whoever runs the elections,
Secretary.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna shut up.
Yeah, so I get the time's already started. I totally agree with you, Scott. Let's recycle materials. We don't need to write the same thing 7 times. But I think it's really important to remind people in both communities about the date and how to vote, where to vote, and to vote, because it's a weird election.
And am I correct in saying we could send an email to our friends and neighbors as an individual person that says, hey, the vote's coming up, you can vote tomorrow. We could do that. We don't have to, it doesn't just have to be Front Porch Forum and the bridge and whatever. We can
do it on Facebook and
So that would be another tactic we could use as individuals to just say, want to make sure you could vote today at town hall.
Yeah.
If you're a Montpelier resident.
Are we allowed to ask our friends and neighbors to support the budget?
So I'm glad you asked
as
that
an
question.
individual, yes. I think if someone like Jake Feldman, should I vote for this budget? I think you say, as Jake Feldman, yes, you should. I don't think you can say like the board, on behalf of the board, I'm going to vote.
Jim,
but on behalf of Jake, you certainly can.
We unanimously voted to support the budget
There is,
in a
Forward it to
public
voters,
meeting.
to forward it to voters, yeah.
yeah, I mean, as for some odd reason, like as a board body, you can tell people, you can ask people to vote. You can tell them why it's beneficial for the school, but you can't say, go vote yes.
I thought the question was as an individual, even an individual board member, I can say, I supported this budget.
I think if you have your board hat on, you can say you supported your budget and why. You just can't say vote yes on the budget. You say, please vote on the budget and here's why I supported it. I know it's kind of stupid, but I don't get it.
Very
Like, because
small.
obviously we wouldn't forward a budget to the voters that we didn't want them to vote yes on, but
Well, there are cases, and I've never experienced this as a board member myself, where boards are not unanimous,
this
for
is true.
example.
Yeah.
But that's not the case right now.
Yeah. But I don't think that's the reason. I think it's something else. I think there's some other weird,
Technical thing.
some weird quirk behind that rule.
I would be interested in knowing what the weird quirk is, but we definitely don't have to go there tonight since it seems like nobody in this room knows what the weird quirk is. I don't
No.
think we have to talk about the weird quirk.
I'm sure Pietro does, and I'm sure for
Well, send him an email.
Yeah.
Meeting, right?
So those are ideas that we have for the sort of get out the vote. I think we could come back to Jake's hot take about engaging on Front Porch Forum around making clarifications, right?
Yeah, well, if these articles were out there, then as the misconceptions pop up, we could say, actually, here's this truth, and for more information, just check out this article or our budget page.
The budget FAQ page is a place I was.
The budget FAQ or Times Argus article.
Yeah.
That would be ideal.
Yeah. One question I have about that is whether or not that's something we would sort of empower any board member to do if they saw it on Front Porch Forum, or if it's something we want to task a singular individual or a couple of individuals to do.
Maybe that the Equity and Communications Committee could talk about that in the near term. It seems like it might get messy if a lot of board members were
Yes.
trying to take responsibility. I personally, I don't think I would be good at it, but I'd be comfortable with you doing it.
Why don't we do it this way? If you see something on Front Porch Forum that you think should be responded to, send an email to Libby and me, and then I can share it with Mia. That if you include me on the first one, then I think we get 3. And we can and with even a proposed response. And then we can vet it. And that way we won't be speaking with a bunch of different voices. There'll be a coordinated point, but we'll all kind of be watching. You can propose text, and then we can kind of respond that way. And I'm not sure we want to respond to everything on Front Porch Forum, but I think if there are misconceptions that seem to be building, I think it's helpful to correct them.
Yeah, I think engaging in a dialogue through Front Porch Forum doesn't help.
Yeah. But if there is, some wild rumor out there that everyone thinks we're, spending $2 million on a swimming pool, we probably want to correct that.
Now there will be.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
We might end up spending $2 million on a swimming pool, but it would be because of a flood.
Oh,
Yeah.
dear. Oh, dear.
Or we can just acquire a swimming pool. You don't have to spend money on it.
Okay,
Yeah.
what you just proposed sounds good to me. The thing I was trying to weigh, like what I was weighing in my mind was it sometimes is a lot of work to keep up with with the things that get posted on Front Porch Forum. So it would be a lot, I think, to ask of one person to be tracking it all. But if we have collective eyes and then a central, like a funnel that the communication goes through, I think that works certainly for the next month.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking like themes that are emerging, not necessarily individual messages.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would echo Jim's note of caution and restraint and not, not overdoing that and sort of, because I think it can get a little back and forth.
It can get ticky-tacky
sometimes. So
stick to the facts.
Yeah.
I do think it's important to note the very real heartache of having to close Roxbury Village School when we do talk about these things that we have made really, really challenging and, difficult decisions to arrive at this budget. It's not a responsibility we take lightly, and just kind of remind folks who might start to sort of pick away. It's like, this is after
a lot of work,
a lot of really hard work and some pain, and just sort of honor that.
Kristen, is there?
No, just that I don't want it to sort of be like, okay, that happened. And I need Montpelier voters to understand how massive that was.
Kristen.
Thanks for saying that, Jill. I think I feel compelled to share that this is a really difficult vote out in Roxbury. The premise of this vote is moving our youngest students to UES, which was not the will of our community. And that's really being felt right now. I do expect there to be a number of voters, it's impossible to tell how many, in Roxbury that will vote no on this budget due to that factor. I know that the budget originally did pass, the first budget did pass in Roxbury, and, I think in part, it's an assumption, but that budget passed because the budget did include continued operation of RDS. So, Rhett and I are definitely in a different place, in a trickier place in terms of motivating the vote out here, because this budget is a hard one for a lot of folks to swallow. So I think, Rhett and I know we put it in the Roxbury Newsy that, these are just the logistics of the vote and how to vote and what have you. But the nature of this vote is a really, really hard one out in Roxbury. And I know that we have things to add to that conversation in terms of the whys of, why, at least I voted for this, was the addition of the transportation funding, the consideration of after school, and things like that. But this is definitely a tough vote out in Roxbury.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think we should encourage people to vote regardless of how we feel they're going to vote.
Absolutely. So thank you already for doing the work of making sure people know how to do it and when to do it. Yeah.
Anything else on that? And I'll get to that TA article for the next couple of days. Well, thanks, everyone. And definitely, I mean, to Jake's point, you can talk to friends and neighbors as an individual, kind of as you want, and definitely encouraging people to get out to vote is important, because it's a weird election. There's nothing else on the ballot. The timing's a little strange, so turnout is probably going to be not as high as we see in other elections. So our final order of business, and we may have an under 4-hour meeting here, is policy monitoring. We have three policy monitoring reports, FM 100, which is budget execution, D7, special education, and D22, selection of library materials. Do I have a motion to approve those three monitoring reports?
So
Yep.
moved.
So moved.
Oh, he can do it. Jake can do it.
Yeah.
Anna,
Jake was nodding his head, which I don't think counts.
she can't see that. I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion about the monitoring reports?
As a general matter, is it the case that when we're getting policy reports, they come with the approval of the policy committee?
Yeah. The policy monitoring is solely, so these are policies that, that were approved by the policy committee and then approved by the board and enacted. And she just periodically basically reports compliance of those.
So what we're approving here is nothing about the policy, it's about those like addendums to the
Yeah, exactly.
policy that say
It's-
this is how we're.
Yeah.
It's almost like we're accepting this monitoring report.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just, yeah, we want to make sure that we're in compliance with all the policies and we just put them on a rolling basis.
Another new guy nuance that I didn't quite appreciate.
No, it's a good question because it might not be
Yeah.
obvious.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Thanks
No,
for
and-
asking.
Yeah, thanks for asking. And like, feel free to ask those whenever, because I know when I was new, I oftentimes sat there and be like, what am I doing? All's in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second,
Second that.
all's in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Good night, everyone.
The storm
Stay
is not
cozy. I
quite
heard
as-
it. I heard sleet on the windows for a bit and I thought, oh boy, here it comes. But yeah.